She's a guide for toddler and newly incarnating souls.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vandia Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey, everybody. Really excited to be back with you live today. And we have a really special guest, Maggie Fry. She was here last month for her past life session. And today we're going to be talking about her life between lives session. So if you want to look that one up, I believe it's episode 32, but it was from December of 2022. So go ahead and look that up. And so let me bring Maggie into the stream. Here we go. Let me unmute you. Hi, Maggie. How are
Hi.
you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And you're coming to us from Boston this time?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Nice.
And I forgot to ask, what's the weather like there today?
It's kind of gray and cold. Not super cold. I think it's in the 40s, but
That's
yeah,
cold to us
okay, then cold.
in Ventura. Oh, and I see people joining us and chiming in. Hi, Krish. Great to have you here with us today. It's always fun when we have people. And feel free to ask questions of me or Maggie, and we'll answer them as we're able to. So thank you. Okay, you ready to get started?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So, just for some people who maybe didn't catch the last episode, if you could just say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start talking about last past life, and then we'll jump into this one.
All right, sure. Yeah. I'm Maggie.
Hi,
I'm
Maggie. Like where you're from, a little bit about your family, what drew you to this.
yeah, so I'm originally from Louisiana, and my family is pretty artsy and creative and stuff. But I grew up in like a very Catholic upbringing, but I was introduced into more like metaphysical things, like through holistic healing, because I
Mhm.
had some. Uh, I ended up having to go to like holistic doctors as a teenager, and that kind of eventually led me through these more like spiritual things. But now I'm in Boston. I came up here originally for grad school for music, and now I'm a manager at a grocery store. I'm kind of doing music stuff on the side, and it's kind of me right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's great. Wonderful. Okay. And so Maggie did her past life session. And just so you know, we did these remotely. People always ask if it works online. And I say the guides don't care if we're in the same room or different planets. So we did your
Yeah.
sessions with you on the East Coast. I think, were you at home? Were you in Louisiana when we did them?
No, I was in Boston when we did it.
Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm in Southern California, Ventura. So we did your past life session, and I can share a little bit about it, but maybe do you want to tell me maybe the high points of what you remember about sort of that life, like what you got out of it?
Um, what I got out of it, I was this Greek artist, really, I guess, who was in love with this woman, and she ended up marrying someone else. And then I think that was kind of defeating for me. And I kind of just gave up on life slowly,
Right.
gave up on art and love and everything. And that was kind of it for that life. I just kind of
Yeah.
giving up and not really
Yeah.
trying to connect with people and stuff.
Yeah. And when you crossed over, I'm going to get a little closer to my microphone. That's what they said, is that you kind of could have maybe tried some other things.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, those of you watching, in your life between lives session, the first part of it is a past life session. But this time, the guides aren't just picking a random life that's related to your life today. They're picking your very recent past life, because what we want to explore is the time between that last life before you became Maggie today. So let's talk a little bit about Jeremy. So what do you remember about Jeremy and that life?
I know when we first went into it, I was a teenager. I was 16, and we were at the prom.
Mhm. And I said, "Are
um,
you holding it anything?" Do you
yeah, and
remember?
I was holding my partner's hands.
You were dancing.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
were dancing. Um, yeah, it was really fun to be there. I think this was like in the 80s too,
Mhm.
so it was like pretty.
1983. Mhm.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. Um, and Yeah, I was holding my partner's hands. Her name was Sarah, and I was really nervous but excited because that was the night I was going to ask her to be my girlfriend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Sarah was the most important person in that life.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, before we went further in the life, I asked about your family growing up. Oh, and you were Black in the
Yep.
South in North Carolina.
Mhm.
Mhm. And do you remember much about the childhood or the family?
Um, I feel like we didn't. Oh, well, we had like that one scene in childhood where I was really excited because my team won the t-ball game when I was like
Mhm.
4.
That was your happy, proud moment.
Yeah,
I
and I was
remember.
very excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. Eh,
Yeah. I
the
remember
only
s
thing Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I said, like, with the family stuff, the only thing I remember us saying is, like, I remember my family, I said that they were very loud,
Mhm.
and, like, I think everyone was just kind of very boisterous in opinion, and I was just kind of very quiet.
Right, and that was the only thing I was gonna say, that was what stood out to me, is that they were loud and you were a little more quiet, and I
Yeah.
do see more people chiming in. David, thank you. Hi, Maggie. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
he's happy to be here. Thank you, David. Thank you, Krish. We always appreciate the live support, and then I know there'll be others of you who will be watching and listening later on, so we're excited to share with you. And that life was kind of a short life,
Mhm.
so there was a turning point. Were you gonna say something?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. The turning point was, well, actually, do you wanna say much about that part right before they split up or why they split up?
Yeah, so, I think we had been together by that point for 3 years, I guess, because it was 19 when the turning point happened.
Mm,
Um, and we were basically on our way to a clinic, for her to have an abortion.
mhm,
And it was very sad. And yeah, it was hard. And so we ended up splitting up after that because it was just too much. And I think she really wanted the separation and needed to split up. And I didn't necessarily want that, but
yeah,
that's just kind of what happened.
it was sad. So 2 lives of lost love.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the final day was pretty soon thereafter. It was when you were, let's see, 23? Was it
Hmm.
23? Yeah. And you had been out with friends drinking, and then do you remember how you crossed over, how you passed?
Yeah, I think I was going to meet my friends, and I don't know if I was drunk before that or after that, but basically we all got in the car and I was driving while I was drunk, and then we all kind of fell off the side of the mountain while I was driving and crashed
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And to
Not
me,
great.
it felt like you never really got over Sarah. And
No, I think that was kind of part of it
right.
was in a way, I don't know if it was giving up as much, it's just, like, it was so sad and I never really, like, reconciled, like, that depression or that loss, like, I
Right.
never really
Yeah.
addressed it.
Yeah, that grief for sure. And I
Yeah.
remember asking about when you had the crash, and you said that you left actually before.
Yeah. Yeah, I did, like, I didn't experience the crash itself, I think I just kind of like, as soon as I knew it was happening, I exited the body and just kinda, like, watched it and, yeah, saw it
Mhm.
from above.
And I've heard that that happens, and I've had that happen with other people too, is they don't experience that actual death. So sometimes people are afraid to do the session because, oh, the death part sounds scary. And we usually say going to the moment right after death, so you're not going through it. But I did ask, how was it? And you said, well, actually, I kind of took off before the actual crash part. So that's good to know
Yeah. Yeah,
the
yeah.
impact. And so what was different though was when we when you crossed over and we met your guide. And do you remember the name of your guide?
Danny.
Danny. And Danny's
Yeah.
a friend in your life today, right?
No, no, that
Oh,
was just yeah, because I remember, like, listening back to it, I realized, like, that's what you
that's what I
thought.
thought. Yeah.
Because I was confused at some of the questions that you'd asked, I was like, "No, his name's Danny."
Okay. So that's just your guide's name, Danny. And I see other
Yeah.
people chiming in. Leah. Hi, Leah. And yeah, David Young, 23. Very young.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought when you were like, Danny, I thought it was someone from this life.
No.
Okay, thank you. See, I love doing these because not only do I get more information, but I get clarification. Okay, great. It felt to me like the response to that life was different than the response to the previous life. Do you remember the nuance, or do you want me to share? Because again, I just listened to it, so it's pretty fresh for me.
Gotcha. I think, like, for me, it was like that I really tried, and I
Right.
really did try to, like, connect and, like, engage, even if at the end I, you know, was feeling a lot of feelings and kind of went wayward a little bit. It was like I was actually trying, whereas in the first past life, I'd completely given up and was like apathetic and didn't was like not engaged at all.
Right. Well, you went and worked in a field and didn't do your art and didn't pursue love.
Yeah, I just like shut down basically.
Right. Yeah. So I love that they said, don't be so hard on yourself. You tried to connect.
Hmm.
And then there was a couple other messages. And I have my notes taped behind my ring lights. That's why I'm looking up now. I should just pretend I'm thinking, but I'm not. As I have down that he said, you know, you take things too seriously, open up, have fun, so that you don't be so hard on yourself. You tried, at least you tried in that life.
Yeah, yeah, which is
Okay,
really very nice.
very nice. And then after a difficult life, sometimes we go to a place of healing, and you went to a place of healing. And do you remember much about that?
I do. I remember it was like simultaneously a shower and a bath. Like it was
Nice.
just I don't know, it was just like a wave of energy or like being
Mm,
showered with energy and things kind of flushing away, but then also like soaking in this really just like lovely, warm feeling hominess
mm,
energy. It was really nice.
yeah. And we ask you to etch that in your mind in case you ever want to go back there. Do you think you'll ever use that or as a
I
place to
think so. Yeah.
recharge?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
It feels
great.
good.
And then we went to your soul group, and it
Mhm.
was kind of a small soul group. And I have noticed with more advanced souls, the groups are often a little smaller.
Mm.
So sorry, spoiler alert, a little bit more of an advanced soul. Um, and I see more people. The shower and bath sounds amazing.
It was.
It was. Okay. And then was there anything in particular that stood out to you from your soul group?
It was just nice to see everyone. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, because I knew like two of them are in my life currently, and then one of them is not in my life currently. But it was just so cool to because you asked me like if I had a primary soulmate,
Mhm.
um, and I was just like all of them basically.
Yeah,
Like it's
that's
just
true.
like a cute a
Yeah, yeah,
cute little
yeah.
group.
But there was one that we kind of said was maybe more of a soulmate even than some of the others. Do you remember who that was?
Yeah, Ta.
Ta,
Mhm.
who I tried to find out who it was in this life, and
Yeah.
they said, "You haven't met them yet," and they wouldn't tell us when or who or how. I tried.
Yeah, you did, and, like, yeah, but I think I was kinda laughing while I was trying to answer too, because like, they were just like, "Nope, that's a surprise."
Yeah, it's a
So, whether
surprise.
it happens or not, it's a
So
surprise.
you'll have to let me know whenever you meet whoever Ta is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I'll let you
found
know.
them. They found me. And do
Yeah.
you wanna say anything about any of the others that were in the group?
Yeah, so I had so my first one that I met was Anna, who was a she was like a twin of mine in the womb, and but she had died in the womb, so I never actually got to like meet her in this lifetime. But she was one of my soul group members, and that was really cool to see and feel and connect with her and like kind of
Mhm.
validate that experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And then Christina, my best friend in this lifetime, was the other was the other
Mm,
soul. And that was also just another cool validation because it's like something I always knew just because we understand each other in a way that like I can't explain to anyone else. But yeah, that was just really cool to experience that.
yeah, and people are asking, what relationship do you have with the persons from your soul group in your current life? So one was your best friend,
Mhm.
one was the soul that would have been the triplets. There were 3 of you in the womb, you
Yeah.
told me.
Hmm.
And then I have them
And,
down.
and
Who
then
was the
Ta was
3rd
the other
one?
one.
And Ta. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
But Ta was Sarah, my girlfriend in the
That's
most
right.
previous life. Yeah.
Right, right, and I think Anna, the first one,
Hmm.
was Jeremy's sister.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So they were both in that life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. We get to say, who was this person, this soul who's coming to greet you in your last life, and who are they in this life?
Hmm. Yeah, it was so cool to see and experience that, I guess.
Yeah. And then later on, we're going to talk a little bit about incarnating on other planets. And a couple of them were even with you in the other planet,
Yeah, my best friend, I think her soul name was Ray, but
right?
Ray and Ta, the one we've mentioned, I think have incarnated. Because something with my something I realized about my group, because you had asked about like the colors of us,
Mhm.
and I know Anna was like a different color
Mm.
than us, and the feeling I got is that she kind of like she newly joined our group because
Oh,
it's like our we have like our
she was yellow and the rest of you were all
mhm,
pretty blue.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think she was kind of like a newer, like, transfer-ish kind of thing, but we're still all really I mean, I think she's been there for a while, but it's still just I don't know. That was an impression I got.
Hmm. And that's interesting, the thing you said about a transfer, because there's different types of soul groups I'm gathering. For the most part, we're usually talking about the one you have been in with since you were born or since your soul was created. But there also are soul kind of what we call work groups.
Yeah.
And this might be more of that because it turned out you were all teachers.
Yeah, so I think that I think that is what this was, which makes sense.
Hmm. More of
So
a, they all turned out to be a group of guides, which I slowly figured out. We'll see in a minute.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And I see questions and things popping up. Oh, Chris was just saying thank you for answering her question. Okay. Oh, and then colors. Most advanced souls don't like me to talk too much about them being advanced. So sorry. But
Okay.
lighter colors are younger souls, and then blue. The blue souls are the advanced souls. I think it's blue and purple. I can never remember which is the most advanced, but those bluish purple is where
Mhm.
you guys were, most of your group.
Yeah, yeah, I think I was a little lighter blue, but I remember Ray or Christina and Ta were, like, more of a blue-purple color.
Yeah. Oh, what's this? You've got a hint of what's to come, meeting your soulmate in this life you get to look forward to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a sense if it feels like a male in this life or a female soulmate?
I don't know. I'm also bi, so either, like, whatever they show up as is who they are.
But do you have a sense that it's a romantic soulmate? A lot of times they are and sometimes not.
It might be,
Okay.
but again, I haven't met them yet, so
So we'll see.
who's to know?
When you do, you'll have to come back and tell us
Yeah,
about it.
exactly.
Okay, great. Indigo is most advanced.
Okay,
I just
nice.
know that darker is the most advanced for
Mhm.
sure. Okay, and I think that was it. Unless, did you think of anything else you wanted to add in your soul group? We have so much that I'm probably going a little lighter through some of these than I might in other episodes because Maggie had a lot in her session. It was
There
great.
are
I
a
want
lot
to
of
share it all with
places.
you. Yeah, exactly. Anything else that stood out to you about the soul group? Oh,
Oh,
oh
oh,
no,
you're
wait,
good.
that was the council. I was going to say something else about the divine energy, but I think that was the council.
Oh, yeah, that was. Yeah, I think that was it for my soul group because then we just reached out to, or I asked about like my sisters in this lifetime, and it was cool to see them
Oh, yeah.
and know them.
We don't usually, I don't usually check in, but I knew there were some people on your list that we hadn't found yet, and so we asked if they were in sort of auxiliary or secondary or other groups kind of around your soul group, and they were.
Yeah, and they were. Yeah, so it was nice to see them and kind of again get like some kind of validation and messages from them as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And do you have a sense of spatially? Because I read this things in the book, but like, does it feel like they're like just right nearby, or what's your sense of what the other groups are about?
I I don't know because I think we were basing it off of like my teacher group, so I don't know if it was actually like my
Mm,
home group or not. And
got it.
so that sense of space is different. But I remember like whenever I singled them out, it was just kind of like all of a sudden they were right there in front of me.
Got it. They just kind of drew close. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, and then from there we went to your council and you called them teachers.
Yep, they're my teachers.
And how many were there and what do you remember about what they looked like or appeared like?
There were 4 of them, and they were sitting at this table, like, sitting kind of high up, but just so that because I was standing that we were, like, at the same level,
Mhm.
and they were kind of like these, like, slender light beings with kind of, like, blue hues, blue vibes going on. I'm not sure.
I remember saying, "What do they look like? Can you describe it?" And you said, "They're kind of different looking." And I was like, "Yeah, I would guess they're kinda different looking." In fact, we often do a video to go with the session. Like, I'll give my graphic person a clip, audio clip, and then we put video to it. But I was like, I couldn't think of anything that we could do to put video because sometimes she'll grab things and they don't quite fit. And I thought, I
Mhm.
think it's just better if we share because
Yeah.
I didn't get the sense you could really capture this. Oh, we have a bunch of
No.
questions coming in. Describe what they look like. Oh, yeah. People are saying, yes, we got it. Yeah. So they were kind of tall. I remember you saying tall, blue. Number three was going to be the director.
Yeah, because they were sitting in a line at a table, and it was I think from left to right, number 3 was kind of like the one who was speaking the most, the one who
And,
was leading it.
and were you sitting or standing?
I was standing in front of them.
Okay. On the same level or were they higher than you?
They we were they were I mean, because they were sitting higher up, but they were sitting in a way that we were at the same level.
Kind of at the same level. Okay.
Mhm.
And again, I notice with more advanced souls, there's a little more on the same level, and younger souls, there's a little more of a difference. I don't know if this is all the time, but that's something I've noticed from time to time. And then, do you remember much about what happened there? Otherwise, I have a whole bunch of things I wrote down because they gave you some really cool messages.
Yeah, they gave me a lot of really good advice. I don't know. I mean, you can bring up things.
You want me to? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, it's funny because I have a really, really, really good memory. Not to be braggy, but I just mean I have kind of a semi-photographic memory.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, except with these. So
Oh,
it tells me that I go under along with you a little bit. And I remember
gotcha.
more because I don't go under as deeply, obviously, but I go under a fair amount because when I'm listening to it, it's not like I haven't heard it before. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. But normally, like my whole life is kind of like a video. Like I
Oh,
can
nice.
yeah, well, kind of. It's hard for my poor husband because I can
Okay.
remember everything, and most people
Gotcha.
can't.
Yeah.
But, but it's funny to me how much I don't remember until I listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that was the same, like, for this. There was something that was like, "Oh, yeah, we did talk about that."
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
Yeah.
they gave you some awesome messages, so I actually wrote a lot of these down.
Okay.
So they said, "Time to be free," and sometimes
Mhm.
it's emotional, so just, we process it again. Stop doubting yourself so much. And feel free to stop me at any of these if something especially hits a nerve.
Okay.
Did that one hit a nerve?
I think I'm okay. I mean, like, they all mean something to me,
Mm,
obviously. Like, that's why they
okay.
brought it up, so,
Okay. So
yeah.
I'm going to say them and then let's go back through them and you tell me kind of how it was for you or which
Okay.
ones really stand out. And I loved them. Sometimes I feel like they're giving me messages through you guys because some of the things I'm like, oh, yeah, I need to hear that. This was one of my favorites. Everything is and always will be okay.
Yeah, that's a big one for me, 'cause I mean, like, I would assume most people feel this way, but, you just kinda want things to work out, and you want things to kind of fit into or I have a tendency to try to make things fit into this bubble where everything will be okay
Mm,
but it's just kind of learning and recognizing that things don't have to look a certain way for things to be good or things to be okay and for me to be okay.
right. In fact, they said something kind of about that. Let's see. Things don't have to look like they're going smoothly to be going smoothly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one hit home. I was like, "Okay, wow."
Yeah. Well, because I think they're saying we're learning lessons and having experiences. So even though if it feels like it's not going the way it should be to us, we might be right on track with what we're here to work on and learn.
Exactly, yeah, and that's I mean, something I've been working on for a while, and I think a lot of people are, it's just I mean, as humans, we have so many emotions and so many experiences we're going through, and sometimes things are really hard and we're really struggling, but then you realize afterwards that that was like necessary in a way for you to
Right.
learn something or
Right.
progress or whatever it is. And yeah, so I think that was a really nice way to say that.
Yeah. I love that. I asked, and I think it was one of your questions. So you can bring questions to the session. I know most of you probably know that, but that's the fun part. Um, is your purpose was to find your voice? And I remember saying with her creativity or as a soul?
Yeah, and they're just like as a part of existence.
Mhm. And I think they were saying as both,
Yeah.
your art as well as just your being.
Yeah. I think it's finding like well, because I think another part of my lessons are like they kept bringing up the working with my independence or like individuality within the whole and recognizing
Mhm.
that even if I am individual and independent, I am still a part of the whole. And so I think
Right.
that is like recognizing that and realizing that is kind of finding your voice like in a creative way because and it's like recognizing your voice, you know? Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Well, and it's funny, excuse me. Let me take a little drink of water here. I appreciate you clarifying that because this reminds me of last time where they said you were very alone, but that's not the same as being independent.
Yes.
That being independent is having your voice and being comfortable kind of regardless and
Yeah.
but being connected.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's been a big lesson I've been working on for a
Yeah.
while.
And does that affect your art? Because I know you do music and art. Is it in your art or more socially?
I think it's both because I how I think about it is it's all tied together, especially if you're doing it in a healthy way, I think.
Mhm.
It's just kind of if my music is an expression of me, it's as much an expression of me as my connections and relationships with others. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's yeah, I don't know, finding finding a way to express that
And just
in
be
both
comfortable.
ways.
To me, it
Yeah.
feels like just being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. I know there was so many good messages. I showed Maggie my notes beforehand and not just so much I want to try to get in. Okay, so the last one, oh, well, actually, there's a couple of little ones and then one big one. Trust yourself. And then I love this do right. I'm trying to, I have so much on there. It's really small. So I'm trying to read it. Do
Oh.
right, be kind, be generous, be loving. And they said, and apply that to yourself.
Yeah.
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 And then this, oh, were you going to say something about that?
Mm, yeah.
Okay, this isn't the biggie. Okay, and I wrote it, but it's in really small print. Move through the world lightly and freely. Do you remember this one?
Mhm.
That's where love comes from. That's where things are born and created. You don't have to try or force. Move through the world lightly and freely. I remember I asked you to repeat it because it was pretty big.
Yeah.
That's where love comes from, and that's where things are born and created. You don't have to try or force. How was that for you to hear that?
That was really nice, and I that's something I'm gonna have to, like, write on my wall or something so I remember it. But, yeah, it's big because it's I don't know, 'cause it is hard to, like, explain that even further, or to, like, really understand it and really embody that because it's what it's saying is because I mean, they followed it up with, like, you can't force anything or don't try to force anything, like, force is the opposite of love and force is the opposite of, like, basically creation in a way.
Mhm, and
Um,
they kept using the word freedom. They kept talking a lot about being free.
yeah, and it's just, like, having that freedom, having that feeling of, like, security and independence, like, within yourself to where you can just exist and, like, just because you exist, like, things naturally unfold and things naturally come out of that, like, you naturally express yourself just because you're existing and being
Right.
free, and those expressions lead to creations and all that kinda stuff, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a
No,
big message.
it was a big one for me. As I was getting ready for today's episode and I was writing all that down, I'm always rushing just because 'cause trying to always do too much. So I'm like rushing through writing this really lovely thing about not trying to force things. And I'm like, okay, Bundy, I think this message, you need to slow down, take a breath. Okay, I see some messages. That message can apply to all of us. Very powerful message. And then Rachel wrote, these messages speak to me. Yeah. Yeah. I
Good,
think
yeah.
the messages are for us.
I think so, yeah. I mean, yeah, they apply to everyone.
Mhm. And I was gonna say David wrote very powerful, and David is also creative, and
Oh,
he's an
nice.
artist. Mhm. He's posted
Awesome.
some things in our Facebook group, so I think he could probably relate, but it looks like everybody's kind of relating. And I just wanna say too, sometimes your counsel, they said things that I didn't understand. Did you catch that
Okay.
when you went through the show? Like, I mean, I remember we'd have to, like, get them to distill it into, like, "Okay, let's try that again,"
Oh,
because
yeah, like, to clarify.
well, just because they were so, like, these deep, intense messages about all and life, and I remember being like in my brain, I was like, "Huh?" But I would say, "Can you ask them to say that another way?" Or and that's when we would get these nice little sound bites.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was nice that they would expound upon it.
Right, and kinda give it to us in the way that we could take it in.
Absolutely.
Okay, and oftentimes that's kind of where we're sort of wrapping up a session. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're good. We're about a half hour. I told Maggie I thought we might go an hour today. So just to warn you, if you're on your lunch break, we might have go a little longer. We have three more places that she went. So oftentimes this is kind of where people wrap up or get close to wrapping up.
Oh, wow.
But then we asked where this was one of your questions. What
Mhm.
is your vocation on the other side? And this is where I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And then I started asking my questions. They weren't even Maggie's questions. I'm just really curious. I started asking all kinds of questions. So
It
tell me
was
what
nice though, because it made me, like, I
we
got to see more of it because of that, so that was nice.
I'm glad. So tell me what your vocation is on the other side.
I'm a teacher, basically. I think how I said it was, like, I help others, but it's, I work with these, like, little toddler souls,
And
and
what
they're
do they
just
look like? I love your description.
I said they're small and wispy.
Exactly. So I've had a couple people in the soul nursery, but you're the first one working with the toddler souls.
They're so cute.
Yeah. Well, describe what you remember.
It's kind of like honestly, it's not super far from the movie
Soul.
Soul, like the
Yeah.
Disney Soul one,
Yeah.
because, like, how I saw it in my head, it was like it's kind of like this playground vibe, except I see everything there's, like, this really deep purple tint to it all, like, this really, like, high vibe energy,
Mhm.
um, but, yeah, it's like these little souls just kinda roaming around, and they're just, like, learning how to interact and communicate with each other and learning how to express themselves, and, so, yeah, it's kind of like running a preschool, a soul preschool.
I know. And this is where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is even in any of the Newton books. So I'm like, tell me more. What do you do? And so I asked, you said I help them with their abilities. So what were some of the abilities you were helping them with?
Um, so with, like, expressing themselves or, like I think, like, the examples I gave was, like, we would practice, like, making colors or, like, kind of learning how to create light or things like this. It's just I mean, what it is it's them learning how to move and utilize their energy
Hmm.
and how to, like, really just embody themselves kind of stuff. I mean, just as, like, you do with toddlers, like, they're just learning their motor skills and things
Right.
like that.
Right. Exactly.
And so, like, that equivalent for, I guess, a soul is, like, learning how to kind of create things and mold and, like, move through things, maybe go through, like, little obstacle courses or something, but,
I love it.
yeah, I remember, like, the lights and the colors was a big one that we work on, and then later in the session, we found out that we also do music stuff there
Right.
with them,
Right. Right.
and that was really fun because I got the impression we do that a lot, and they absolutely love it.
Well, and the big thing I remember you saying was that you play. You play with them.
Yeah, we just play all the time, like, it's just games
Like
and having
games,
fun
just
and
like little
play. Yeah.
kids. You they learn through playing. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember asking about the music. I said, "Is it like harmony?"
Yeah, and it's kind of is the answer because I think pitches aren't the same as they are in the soul world, because like in as a energy being yourself, or like up there, um you have disposal to like all the frequencies that exist, so like any sound and any, vibration that exists. And so sometimes I think it'll be actual pitches and we'll try to harmonize. I would get that feeling that like that would be kind of one of the games. It's like, all right, now we're all going to try to do this one sound and like all create this together. And then sometimes it's like, all right, some of you do this sound and some of you do this sound. And so to do harmony things. But then sometimes because they're toddlers and you have to let them have fun, it's like, all right, now someone do, or y'all pick whatever sound you want and just go for it.
That sounds so fun. And
It's
I
so
remember
fun.
you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, it is so fun. And I think it gets a little crazy sometimes,
It
but
sounds
that's
crazy.
what toddler souls do.
Yeah. Well, and I remember you saying sometimes we do different sounds, sometimes we match sounds,
Hmm.
but I could literally see and feel you there and kind of your joy. You were like tickled, you know?
Yeah, they're just so cute and they're so excited about it all. And it's so fun to, I don't know, see that and like see them learn their expressions and all that kind of stuff. And all of this really makes sense because I'm such a kid and baby person in this life
Mm,
too. And I never really had like a reason for it other than just like they're cute and I like them. But now
mhm.
it all makes sense because I'm
Right.
just like, yeah, I
Right.
don't know.
And this is about the time I asked Maggie, "Are you a guide?" Because I've never had a guide before. And she was like, "Mm, yeah, kind of." That's when I figured it out.
Yeah, it was, yeah, because I think because you had asked if I was a guide for like that group, that the little toddler souls.
Mm.
And I think I said I was a guide for like some of them. So I think because I think there are a few groups that like kind of play together.
I see.
And so that's why, because I had asked also, um, I was curious like who I taught with, like who was
Mhm,
another teacher with me, and it was
mhm,
Ta, the
mhm.
person in my group. And so I get the feeling that like our groups will kind of all play and interact together. And so I was a guide for some of them, but also I I think I've more recently started being a guide for like new souls who are, or like souls who are incarnating on
Right,
earth and
right,
stuff.
okay. So hold that thought.
Okay.
Just before we leave the toddler souls, I
Yeah.
remember you said you also help them with communication.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so because there are different ways to communicate. I mean, just as humans, we can communicate with our words, and so like in the spirit world, I guess that would be like communicating with thoughts. But we also communicate through. I called it imprinting
Mm?
in the session,
You said it was like
and
a touch, but not a touch.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of like I feel like it would be the equivalent here of like whenever you can look at someone and like communicate something and you both understand, or like there's something in your body expression, or even
Mhm,
if you touch someone and they just kind of understand.
mhm.
That would be the closest equivalent. But
Yeah,
it's, yeah, it's the idea of like you can kind of create this energy or like this thought, maybe like if like for instance if this young soul like has an apple in their mind and then like they touch this other soul and then like they'll see the apple, like it's something like that, or that
I
color or whatever it
love it.
is.
I love it. And so when she said I teach them to communicate, I thought, "Oh, I know. They communicate with their minds." Like I instead of saying, "Oh, are they talking?" I realized, "Oh, no, wait, they communicate with their minds on the other side." So I was pretty excited that I figured that out and you were like, "Yeah, that's part of it." But also and then you started talking about this other stuff. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And
Yeah,
I see a bunch of comments. Go ahead and then let me look over at the comments when you're done.
I don't know, I feel like that's basically it, just like the, yeah, I don't know how else to describe the imprinting thing, but it's just like it's like communicating through feelings. Yeah, I
Okay.
guess like through vibration works too is another way to explain that.
Yeah, David wrote
But it's like the
communication.
vibrations, because vibrations like mean something, because every like emotion, everything has a specific vibration. So it's like, yeah, communicating in that way, I guess.
Yeah. And also, speaking of all the frequencies, singing and sounds are the primary way we connect and communicate. I mean, besides mentally, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of singing and sound and music is on the other side, at least from what I've read and heard. And
Yeah.
so when you said that they're singing, That got my attention. And also somebody just put up imprinting just like from the Twilight series. I don't know, I mean, I know of it, but I don't know it. Do you know it?
It is like I don't think it's the same. It might be the same word, and I
Okay.
don't know the actual definition of imprinting. Um, but imprinting in the Twilight series was, if I remember correctly, it's like the werewolf or something would see this person, and all of a sudden they are like connected forever or
Okay.
something.
Oh yeah, that's like our that's like the human understanding of imprinting, like attachment, like ducks imprint to the boots kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. It's more of like a I would think of imprinting, but like a soft touch is kind of like the best way I can think to describe it. It's
Okay.
not like a permanent connection. It's just like, hey, this is a thought. Here's
And I'm
something
giving
here.
it to you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then you said, but I also am a guide or a teacher for other souls. And then
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that.
Um, I don't didn't go as deeply into that part, but it was just I know they're like newer souls who have just kind of either about to incarnate or for the first time, or have just had their first incarnations. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, and so it's kind of a different. The way I explained it was like we're teaching the same things just at a different in a
Mhm.
different way because it's like the equivalent of like teaching toddlers versus like preteens or teenagers. You
Mm.
can't use the same language.
Yeah. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
loved it because for those of you who've had sessions where you're a newer soul, or I've done sessions for people who are younger souls, when they cross over, they meet their guide, and you would be such a wonderful guide for those souls because they're
Oh,
usually a
thanks.
little gentler and supportive and good job.
Yeah, it's like, "You're doing great, keep it up.
Yeah,
Don't give
exactly.
up."
Exactly. Great. Okay. And let me
Yeah,
see if there's anything else. Thank you so much for clarifying. Music is vibration. Yeah. I'm like I said, I get to learn. And the Newton Institute, we are all learning because the sessions are more varied than they were when Michael Newton wrote the books.
mhm,
So, we're being taken into new territory and always adding to that body of work. So that's why it's so fun to get to learn these things.
yeah,
Okay, and then we ask, do you ever incarnate on other planets? Which you said yes.
yes.
And you had a favorite. Do you remember the favorite?
I do, it was a water planet, or
Mhm.
mainly water.
Mhm.
Um, I called it Matusha,
Mhm. Oh,
or
I forgot
so
the name, yes.
yeah, so that's what I call it anyway,
Mm,
and it's yeah, I don't it just feels, like, very, like, peaceful and nice, but I remember whenever I incarnate there, the shape I take, it's like I have this mermaid tail, like, with
mhm,
fins and stuff,
mhm,
but then my top half is, like, this different animal that does not exist on Earth, but the closest way I can describe it, it's like a mix of, like, a cat and some kind of reptile looking thing. It's very interesting. I don't know how to describe it.
That's okay. And I remember us saying, "What kind of animal?" And you said, "Nothing I would be familiar with or
Yeah,
recognize," or something like that.
no, yeah, it was very interesting. Um, but I like it there.
Yeah. No, it sounded like it was a really lovely life. Oh, and I remember saying, "Does it exist now?" And you said, "Yes, but in another dimension."
Yeah, because you said, like, "Does it exist, like, in our universe and galaxy?" And I was like, "Yes and no."
So,
Yeah,
yes, but kind of layered on top of our universe.
yeah, I think it might even be some kind of timeline thing as well. Um, I mean, I don't know how dimensions and timelines work all the way, obviously, but, yeah, the impression I get is, like, it's in a different dimension, and somehow I think that's related to some kind of timeline thing as well. But, yeah, it is, like, within our universe, maybe even this galaxy as well, but, yeah, just in a different dimension.
Yeah. It's not like we could go there.
No, because it's not physically as humans, no.
Right.
Um, yeah, because I remember saying that you asked, like, if it was, again, in this universe or galaxy, and I said it's within our realm of knowledge, but it's in, like, a different dimension.
Mhm.
So I'm still not entirely sure what that means, but it's somewhere out
Okay.
there.
All right. And then I also asked about any other lives or other places, and or I can't remember how it came up, but that you sometimes take lives in that are I'm trying to think of the words, but the mental worlds. That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah, because you had asked me if I ever took like an easy
Oh,
life.
that's right. An easy life. Yes.
Yeah, because I had mentioned that. Oh yeah, because you had asked like basically why I started incarnating on Earth as opposed to these other planets, and I was saying Earth offers like the harder and heavier lessons.
Right.
And then you asked if I took any easy lives, and I think I do take them, but not super frequently.
Right.
Um, and if I am gonna take like a super easy chill life, it's at this mental world. I don't know
Mhm.
what it's called or where it exists, but it's basically just like doing puzzles, kind of like
Mhm.
logic puzzles or
Mhm.
practicing manifestation things the whole time. And it just like there's no conflict. It's just like everything you need is right there. And you're just kind of, if you're problem solving, it's just like all the information's there. You just have to put it together and do it. And that's just very satisfying to my brain.
Well, and I remember you saying that when you were talking about manifesting, that like basically you think it and it exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's just like super easy. Because again, like it's almost like you're doing a puzzle, and then as soon as you like recognize the answer or find a solution, it's just like it's there, and it's like, all right, cool. Then you're moving on to something else or doing something. But it also makes sense because like I'm super into logic puzzles in this life, and so that was a really
Oh.
cool like connection to make as well. I was like,
Oh.
that's why it's so satisfying.
Well, and I think was it you who even mentioned Molly's session? Molly's interview?
I have watched it, yeah.
And that her son came from a planet where they manifested? Was it you
Oh,
who
I
mentioned
did.
that?
I didn't talk about that, I don't think, but I
Okay.
do remember that from her
Yeah.
session.
And he was
Yeah.
very frustrated in this life because things don't manifest so quickly?
Yeah, and that I mean, that applies to me too, I think sometimes because I always, like I have things and I want them to work out a certain way, and then they don't, and then I have to deal with that.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so back to what she said about this is the tough place. This is the hard lessons. This is a hard planet. So remember, you're the advanced souls. Anybody who's here is already an advanced souls. You're the brave souls. I mean, granted, there's
yeah.
younger and more advanced souls among us, but Earth is the hard planet. So you
It
signed up
is.
for the big lessons if you're here.
Yeah, like, there's so many like, there's so much more, like, range of emotions here, which is a
Right.
huge thing,
Right.
because that it ranges from also, like, very heavy, dense negative energies to positive energies and stuff, and, yeah, I think it's not an easy task, and I don't think it's supposed to be.
Right. And that's why
Yeah,
we
yeah.
okay, and then the last place was the life body selection, and we're doing great with time. So,
Nice.
what do you remember about the choices you had available in the life body selection
Yeah,
place?
there were 3 different choices. The first one I was shown was a male, and I remember him feeling, like, strong and I think bright and smart and just, like, he felt good, but the reason I didn't choose him was for whatever reason, I felt like he didn't have the emotional capacity that I was wanting to deal with in this life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that was something we had talked about in my soul group too that we didn't mention was my group of teachers or my little soul group. We really like to dive deep and
Dig
like,
deep. I remember.
yeah,
Yes.
like dig deep and really like understand things fully. And so like really get into emotions and stuff. And so yeah, this particular male I just felt like didn't have that capacity that I really wanted. Yeah. And then the second choice was another female. Um, and I think she was fine. I think everything was good, but it was just I felt like her family or her life that I was shown, like she wouldn't have the financial means and other means that I guess I wanted in this lifetime.
That would be
Um,
helpful for the
that would
lessons you wanted to explore.
Yeah, I think like the wording I used was just like it felt like another hindrance that was unnecessary
Mhm,
for this lifetime. Like, because I had, I think, more specific lessons I wanted to learn, and
mhm,
I felt like having that lesson was just not necessary for the things I wanted to focus on.
mhm. And then why did you choose the Maggie life
Um,
and
there were
body?
so many reasons,
There were.
which was really cool to see and feel. But yeah, I said that I was, or Maggie was, she was bright
Mhm.
and like intelligent, but she also had a very deep emotional capacity, which I can attest to. But yeah, I had a very deep emotional capacity to where um, my brain power wouldn't overpower my emotions.
Right.
Um, so I would be able to kind of find a balance between and maybe live more with a heart space was the
Mhm.
goal.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then I remember saying, even whenever we regressed to the womb, like my soul being in this body was just like, there's so much light in
Exactly.
this body. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They said you were very intuitive and a lot of light as opposed to the heavy denseness of earth, which meant you were still pretty connected to your soul. And I realized we never shared your immortal soul name. Do you want to
Oh
share
yeah.
that?
Reiki.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were able to still maintain a connection to your soul self because you were so light and
Yeah.
intuitive. And that would help with some of the lessons you were here to work on.
Yeah. Because I said, I think, because I was there. Sorry, there's like so many thoughts going in my
I
brain. I'm trying
know.
to
It's
figure
a
out
lot.
which one. But because that was something even my teachers, like my counsel was saying, was that this life is kind of an opportunity to wrap up or, bring together a lot of lessons in this lifetime from a lot of lives and a lot of things that I've been working on. And so that was really exciting about this body was because I had like, the physical things I was wanting to deal with and like with the emotions versus intelligence and stuff. And then also because my body was so light, I was able to or potentially able to work on like spiritual things as well and kind of tie in all of these lessons from all these different places and eras of my existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know about you, but I was surprised when I asked again, I don't remember exactly what I asked to get this, but where you shared about that you didn't really need to incarnate, or at least not as often as you're talking about kind of tying things up, wrapping things up.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too a little bit. But it also made sense. It made me kind of understand like things I had been feeling in this life. But yeah, it was because they said that I don't or I basically I chose to come here. Um I just kind of I think felt not that it was necessary, but that it would be good for me to do so. For whatever reason. Maybe I just wanted more practice
You're
with
just a
learning
hardworking
things.
soul guide because guides aren't usually incarnating anymore. And so,
Oh, I guess. I don't
yeah.
know.
So my sense was that this was kind of optional. And that's why they kept saying, relax. I wrote it down, relax, take it easy, because this was like a bonus life. Like you didn't need to do this. You chose to do this because you wanted to continue refining and growing and
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to like even what we were just talking about in my soul group, how we like to dig deep and like really learn
Mhm,
and really understand things. And I
mhm.
think that's exactly what this life is. It's an opportunity for me to really, yeah, maybe fine tune, or it's just really, um, what is that like embody or really just like really solidify these lessons that I've been working on for a while. Or maybe really finally get them. I don't know, but something like that. Just like a nice chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I hit all of my main points. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I don't know. I feel like yeah, I feel like we covered so much.
Yeah, yeah, I know it was a lot. Or let me just look at our questions. How many
Yeah.
lives do we incarnate before we stop? Hundreds, thousands? I'm
I think
glad
it
you.
varies like soul to soul too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
See, she knows things I don't know.
I don't know.
David's glad you chose to incarnate at this time. Me too.
Thanks, me too.
But I guess just before we kind of wrap up our time together, any final thoughts on your experience or how it was to share your experience or anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to share it and kind of like digest it all in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was just such a cool experience. Like it brought so much like clarity
Hmm.
and peace to my mind and like so much validation because again like the things something as small as like the toddler soul things, and then my connection with like babies and toddlers in this life,
Right.
or like my connection with music and arts and creativity, because my soul really loves expressing those things and like bringing that into my, you know, my teaching over there as well. Um, and then like my feeling, or like how my guides are just telling me to like take it easy and, relax, and which I've been getting that message forever from
Mhm.
like everyone.
Mhm.
Um, but to really kind of understand it in a different way now, where it just makes more sense. I don't know. That's what's so nice about these sessions, is you're really able to just kind of put everything together in a bigger way
Yeah.
that feels right.
Yeah. Mhm. You have a perspective
Yeah.
on everything that's different, a much
Yeah.
wider angle perspective on all of this.
Yeah. That was another message, just because I said it feels right. That was another message that my guides brought that was really resonated with me too. It's like, um, if it feels right, then it is right, basically, or something.
Oh,
Like for what
nice.
it was just like a message for me to trust myself and my
Okay.
intuition. And I think again that applies to everyone. Like if it really feels like it's speaking to your soul and it feels right, then like 9 times out of 10, or probably more than that, maybe even 10 out of 10, it is like right and good for you to do.
Okay. So words from a spirit guide. Feels right, it's
That's
right.
that's my soul.
Thank
Not
you.
not Maggie.
All right. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for doing the sessions with me. I always feel so honored. And then for being willing to come on and share with everybody, because I
Yeah.
just feel like it's just such a gift you give to me, to them, to the world, because we're still learning, us at the Newton Institute, we're still learning and growing. And so this is continuing the work, that was
Yeah.
begun.
Yeah, I know, and I'm so glad that y'all are, because I mean, it helps everyone learn. Like I've learned so much just like reading these books, and like I'm subscribed to like the little what is that, Stories of the Afterlife newsletter. So like I'm learning things all the time, and it's so fun.
Oh, great. Nice shout out for Stories of the Afterlife. That's where we submit cases. And sometimes I send in these episodes, these interviews,
Yeah,
and they include them if it's related to the topic.
I think that's how I found you actually.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those powerful messages. Thank you,
Oh,
David.
thanks.
Thank you for
Thanks.
those of us who are here. So I'm going to take Maggie off the screen, but we have a few things to share with you before you go. But seriously, Maggie, really, really wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
And thank you
coming.
so much for like doing my sessions and for all of this. Yeah, you've
You're
been great.
welcome. And I love when you come on because, like I said, not only do I learn stuff because it's so hard to get it all when we're doing the session,
Yeah.
but I love that it feels like you get to experience it or digest it, or it kind of, to me, it feels like it gels into more of a story
Yeah,
when you do
it
this
does. Yeah, I think
as,
so.
as opposed to pieces, like it's sort of all the theme kind of emerges.
It really does. Yeah. It's nice to, yeah, again, talk to you about it because you were there. And so it's easier to, yeah,
Mhm.
make it all make more sense in a different way.
Yeah, no, I love it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'm going to take Maggie off just for a second, and we just have a couple things to share with you before you go. So, first of all, thank you very much for being here. We're going to be doing these shows, but not quite as often as we were this past year. So, make sure Leticia's going to put some of these things up for you. Make sure you're on our newsletter list so we can let you know when the next wonderful session, like Maggie's, will be talking about our next interview. Also, if you're nearby, we have our very first past life workshop since COVID. So I'm so excited in Ojai next Saturday, January 21. And we have an early bird special rate that includes lunch and $100 off if you register by this Saturday. So we'd love to have you there. The workshop is January 21, and the special rate goes through this weekend, which would be January 15th. It was supposed to expire the 14th, but we pushed it to the 15th. So we would love to have you there. The code is early bird. Leticia will put it in the comments. Please join us. Make sure you go to the website and sign up to get our newsletter so you can find out when we'll have our next wonderful experience like this. So I'll still be coming to you live, but it will probably be monthly instead of weekly. And truthfully, we were thinking about wrapping up But I feel like the guides, the councils, they're just sending us these wonderful sessions like Maggie's. And when they do, I just have to have a way to share them with you. So we will continue to bring you sessions, and I'll continue to share with you probably about once a month. So I'm looking up at my notes. I think that is all that we have. I want to look and see if we have any other comments. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. We do this for you. So they're sending us these amazing people to share with you. So when you're here, it really is beautiful. It completes the circle for us. And I know some of you are listening later on, and that's just as wonderful. I just appreciate the comments and the live interaction. I will miss you, Vondi. Well, I will still be here. And we still have our Facebook group and our YouTube, but definitely sign up for our newsletter so I can keep you posted when our next live event will be. There's just so much happening. We just want to keep you kind of, what's the word? Just want to keep you informed of what's happening. So again, I don't see any more comments. Thank you for being with us. Oh, we're at an hour. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Love you. See you next time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.